Good morning, Highlands Presbyterian. And so today is Christ the King Sunday. And so we enter into Advent next week. We got 4 Sundays of Advent and Christmas on a Sunday this year, which will be exciting to gather for worship on Sunday morning. And so today, the readings for today is from Jeremiah 23 as well as John 18. And so I was reflecting on these passages for Christ the King Sunday and trying to wrap my head around what it means for Christ to be king, especially in light of the conversation that we read between Jesus and Pontius Pilate in John 18, right? It's the clashing of two kingdoms, right? Jesus has a kingdom, stretches beyond what we can see, what we can grasp in this world, right? It's not bounded by space and time, right? But it includes space and time. Right, so when Jesus walks and teaches and heals on this planet, right, he has power to do so, but his kingdom doesn't have geographic limits. It doesn't butt up against other kingdoms, right? So much bigger than what we can see, what we can imagine, right? Pilate's kingdom, on the other hand, has geographic limits. It has boundaries, and it gained those boundaries by force, and it keeps those boundaries by force, has an army to enforce them, keeping the chaos at bay. And so Pilate, right, is always trying to make this conscious decision about who's a threat and who isn't. And he's trying to figure out, is Jesus a threat to his kingdom, to the Roman kingdom? Is he a threat? Is he a rival? There are two kingdoms represented in this passage. One is afraid of losing what it has to a rival, while the other has no such fear. Jesus' kingdom has come, and it's coming in fullness, but it's with total confidence that Jesus can say that, so he doesn't need to fear. There's nothing Pilate can do to change or derail those plans. And so I've been thinking about all of this, and I was driving home Wednesday night from the men's business group, and there's this house in Arlington that goes all out for the holidays. I mean, all out. It looks like a decoration store explodes on the front lawn, and then they bring other things in around it. It's incredible. It's so festive. And they do it, Halloween and Christmas are the two big ones. And you can even see, like, behind the windows, there's things inside the house. It is complete. And traffic, especially around Halloween and Christmas, backs up on the street because everybody wants to go see it. Everybody stops and looks. It's incredible. I drove by on Wednesday, and they're between seasons. Most of the Halloween decorations are gone, and there's a pile of Christmas presents, decorations in the middle of the yard, but the Halloween decorations aren't completely gone. So along the driveway and along the other side of the property, there are these bright orange glowing jack-o'-lanterns, and it's quite the sight, and this clash in styles. And I realized that this perfectly captures what we talk about when we think of Christ as king, right? Christmas is coming, Christ's kingdom is coming, but there's still evidence of the old kingdom lurking around, right? Sometimes so bright it's hard to see the evidence of Christmas. But if you look, it's there. And what's excited is that we are invited to join with God in building God's kingdom. We work, right? We join with God, right? In bringing us to Christmas, working through the Advent season, this in-between idea, when we recognize that Christ has come and Christ will come again, right? We're between the seasons, and we have a choice. What do we want to fixate on? Do we want to focus on fear, on the old kingdom, right? The Halloween decorations that are there to strike fear? Or do we want to focus on the Christmas presents and go out in the world sowing seeds of hope? Right, so when I think about Highlands Presbyterian, about who we are, and about who we want to be, I think about the pile of presents in the middle of the yard more than I think about the jack-o'-lanterns trying to strike fear into those passing by. I think we choose to be a community of hope and a community of light where people come and people are encouraged. I think that's who we are, sowing seeds of hope and light in the community, in the world. Every church has a choice. We talked about this last week, right? There are plenty of places that choose fear, right? But it's so important for us as a community, right? We can choose to be a people who look at the world and see opportunities and see possibilities to love one another. We're not going to fixate on what's wrong with the world, right? There's plenty of things wrong with the world. We don't need to hide from it. We see it on every day in the news. We live it so often. We're bombarded by fear. But rather than use fear to motivate us, right, we can choose to be a people of hope who see signs of God's kingdom, and we work towards that. We love towards that. We give towards that. When you give your pledges about how you'll give for the next year, I hope you are confident that you are contributing to building a community that's oriented around hope, that's focusing on what's right with one another and what's right with the world, how we can encourage one another to participate in building God's kingdom. It is my solemn hope that when you leave here every Sunday, you are encouraged about who you are and how God's love has claimed you and sends you out as a missionary into your community. I hope you are confident and not broken down or belittled, right? We're all broken in ways, but it's the cracks in our lives through which God's light shines and shows the beauty of grace to the world. And I was thinking about how light shines through the cracks and how small cracks have the ability to change the world. And I was reading an article about a ruling related to California. So the federal government gave approval for 4 dams to be removed along the Klamath River over the next few years. It's California's second largest river system, and the dams have contributed to the demise of the salmon population. And the power generated is no longer meaningful, so they're going to take out these dams and let the salmon population be restored. And I've watched videos of dam removal before, and it's incredible to see. Because it starts slowly, and water just very slightly is trickling through these cracks in the dam. And there's all sorts of cracks, and there's just water, just evidence of water coming through. And then all of a sudden, this dam bursts and water breaks forth, crashing forward, flooding the scene below. Right? All that water that was held back is free to run its course. Anything below the dam is swept away, caught up in this torrent of water. And this is the scene that Jeremiah is describing in chapter 23. Right? God's people have been scattered from their homeland. They're being held back by a barrier, right? By the kingdoms of the world who are using armies to enforce their power. Right? It's the same with Pilate's kingdom, right? Using force to constrain people. But Jeremiah talks about a day when God's kingdom will burst forth. When the flock shall be gathered. And the days are coming, says Jeremiah, when the new king will come. And he will execute justice and righteousness in the land. The kingdom is coming, and when that kingdom comes, a shepherd will care for the people, and that shall fear no more, nor be dismayed. This is this big action, this huge torrent that will explode when the kingdom comes in fullness. And the world today, right, loves big actions like that. We look for them. We chase big actions. Nobody pays attention when the lottery is $1 million. But when it's $2 billion, every single news story is about that. The same is true of the weather. Nobody pays attention here when it snowed 1/10 of an inch. But in Buffalo, when it snows 3 feet, we're all watching. We're all waiting for the next big news item to get excited about. But the work of the church in today's world is more often like those initial cracks in the dam, letting forth small trickles of water, streams that are hardly noticed in comparison to the giant explosion at the end. The work of the church in joining with God and building God's kingdom can be so small. A card, right? A phone card, $5 in an offering plate, 1 canned item brought for a food drive. It's how the church has worked for 2,000 years and how we'll continue to work. And we have to work to look for these signs of hope, especially when we compare it to the overall chaos and noise and volume in the world. At times it feels like putting one small strand of Christmas lights up in a yard with 50 glowing pumpkins. You wonder, right? Does it make a difference? But step by step, what a difference it makes. Hundreds and thousands of tiny cracks in the dam add up, and eventually the water bursts forth. String after string of Christmas light comes, and eventually the yard is aglow in Christmas joy. Tiny action of hope after tiny action of love, and eventually every person in the community is aware that the community of faith is choosing a different kingdom, and hope is aglow as we await God's coming kingdom. We're decorating the church today. Right? The hanging of the greens little by little will transform the sanctuary into a place of seasonal joy. Join us in that and watch as this place is transformed minute by minute. And the invitation into the season of Advent is that we enter this place and we decorate our lives with signs of God's coming kingdom. And minute by minute, day by day, we are transformed. Our lives are changed by the work of the Holy Spirit. Right? When we make our pledges, we're committing to giving back to God. And when we give, we acknowledge our allegiance. We surrender our gifts, trusting in God to use our gifts to change the world and to change us. These changes are small, and it takes great patience. But friends, God is at work in this place. And I believe this in my heart of hearts that day by day, week by week, year by year, we are being transformed. So let's commit to one another to look for the small changes, to celebrate the small changes God is making, and to call them out, encouraging one another on the path of discipleship. It's a hard road, and we need one another as we walk. But if we patiently persist with one another, we notice the ways God is here and God is at work. And we see the reality of God's kingdom, which has come in Christ and will come again in glory, bursting forth in joy. We will be saved, we will dwell securely, and the Lord will be our righteousness. Thanks be to God.